July 8th, 1991, I am 22 years old, and I'm sitting on the floor of my Brooklyn brownstone apartment, just beaming, because I am in it, and I am doing it. Everything I said I was going to do. I'm a working professional dancer in New York City. I'd just come back from Japan, dancing with a company 6 days a week. I had acting agents and modeling agents. I walked onto a Yokohama subway once, looked up, and saw my face on an ad. When MC Hammer came through Tokyo on tour, I got that job too, because in the 90s dance world, I was the white girl that could throw it down with the big boys. July 8th, 1991, sitting on the floor of that Brooklyn brownstone apartment was light years from where I grew up, with my little brother and my single mom in a trailer where this packet of hot dogs was for Wednesday's dinner, and this box of macaroni and cheese was for Thursday's dinner, and there wasn't much left over for extras, so when I begged my mom at 16 years old, please, can I have dance classes, she said, if you want to do this, you're going to have to pay for it yourself. So I did. I babysat, I cleaned trailers, I answered phones in an office, because that first time that the music was cranked up full volume, and just pushed my body around the studio, I was home. And I knew that day in teen beginner jazz class, I was going to be a professional dancer. And I didn't even ask my teacher whether she thought I was good enough, because I thought, if she said yes, I'm going to do everything I can to prove she's right. And if she says no, I'm going to do everything I can to prove she's wrong. I just kept dancing. So fast forward 6 years later, here I am, sitting on the floor of my Brooklyn brownstone apartment on July 8th, 1991, reading and rereading my name on my paycheck for being a backup dancer for Aretha Franklin. And I could just feel it in my bones that this was just the beginning. And the very next day, July 9th, 1991, I was raped by Jeffrey Epstein. Within 2 weeks of the assault, my face broke out in this hive-like acne. Within 3 months, I was overcome with anxiety and insomnia and a fear of everything, so I had to move out of New York. Within 6 months, I could pull a pair of size 0 jeans down off of my hips without unbuttoning them. And that one event left me emotionally overwhelmed and numb all at the same time. Completely disconnected from my body and unable to feel safe in the world for decades. Classic post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And that brave girl, that driven one who didn't even need her dance teacher's permission or validation, that girl's spirit was obliterated. Because when I was assaulted, I didn't scream or fight or run. I just froze. And so I blamed myself, because in 1991, we only ever talked about fight or flight. And I didn't know then that to freeze is not to consent. And yes, I have this agonizingly beautiful healing story. Like bizarre events and magical, miraculous people who have come into my life and changed it for good. It's a great story. But I never wanted to be just another survivor story, or I feel better for having shared and you feel good because I'm talking about it, so I must be okay then, right? And nothing changes. Because although I know you're here and you wouldn't be watching a TEDx talk if you weren't the type of person that wanted to learn and be inspired and be part of the change you wish to see in the world, I also know that though you'll hear my words, you may not really be listening. And it's not just you. No one's really listening. Youth organizations like the Boy Scouts, sports organizations like USA Gymnastics and women's soccer, school administrations, universities, HR departments, the entire entertainment industry, police, FBI, politicians, presidents, all of them not listening. I mean, thousands of priests, thousands. And the popes, not listening. Why will you be different? What will make today different? Because I have to tell you, it is not special or unique that it was Jeffrey Epstein. My story is just easier to hear because it was Jeffrey Epstein, this infamous tabloid billionaire, sex offender, pedophile who owned an island. And let's face it, it's a lot easier for me to tell you my story because once you heard his name, I know you believed me. According to the RAINN, Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, an American is sexually assaulted every 68 seconds, and every 9 minutes that victim is a child. And I think those stats are grossly underrated because I know that the majority of survivors are assaulted by people they know and trust, so they don't report because it's complicated. And that means that it's not just the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world committing these atrocities. It's the people in our communities, in our workplace, in our schools, in our families. I don't think you're not listening because you don't care. I think we are all not listening because when we truly consider the sheer volume of it and who is doing it, it's paralyzing. And no one's telling us what to do because no one knows what to do. And I know that's a lot, and I just want to say you're all doing a really good job of listening right now, so thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Oh my God, could you imagine if I stopped right there and was like, yeah, good night, everybody. And that was it. And unfortunately, that's actually where we are as a society. We are stuck. We are stuck in this injury, trauma, which perpetuates more injury and trauma, and so on, this cycle that seems insurmountable. But I disagree. I actually believe we have everything we need right now to break this cycle, and we've done it before. You know, we as a society experience unthinkable tragedies all the time. And we have lessons learned. We develop ways to prevent tragedy from happening again, but we also develop safety strategies to minimize the harm when the unthinkable happens. Prevention and safety strategy. Prevention. Don't play with matches in the house. Safety strategy. But if by chance you happen to catch fire, little one, please stop, drop, and roll. Yep. Prevention, braking systems in cars. Safety strategy, seatbelts and car seats. Seatbelts and car seats are not going to prevent a car accident, but they give us a sense of control and peace of mind that we are taking personal responsibility for protecting ourselves and our children from severe bodily harm or death when a car accident happens, because we acknowledge that damage happens in car accidents. And preventing car accidents and fire is very, very important. Safety strategies, everyday common sense. And ironically, we teach 5-year-olds to stop, drop, and roll, and they are 117 times more likely to experience sexual harm than ever to catch on fire, and we have exactly 0 societally agreed upon safety strategies to minimize the damage when that unthinkable thing happens. Maybe it's because we don't acknowledge the life-altering damage that happens, because I learned I was not alone. My team and I found study after alarming study of the high correlation between sexual violence and post-traumatic stress disorder. Percentages that matched and often rivaled those of war veterans. War veterans. PTSD is an invisible, debilitating psychological brain injury, and it is not just caused by the event alone. I mean, if you have an injury, a wound, When you go to tension, it heals. But if you have a wound that is ignored, dismissed, rejected, vehemently denied for being a wound, it festers badly. We have an abundance of effective sexual violence and prevention awareness programs out there right now. We as a society are sorely lacking basic first aid for sexual harm to minimize the damage. And that dilemma reminded me of something that happened the day after I was assaulted. I went to work, my friend Joann was there, and she saw something wrong right away. And she grabbed my hand and pulled me into the office. I broke down into tears, and I told her a fraction of what happened because I was too humiliated to tell her the whole thing. And she said, in her very clear mind and strong voice, "Jessica, we need to go to the police." But me and my now traumatized and fragile mind thought, who is going to believe a 22-year-old dancer next to this wealthy Wall Street guy with a plane? So I just shut it down, and I internalized all of that pain and the shame, and I rewarded my dear, kind, loyal, trustworthy friend by not speaking to her again for almost 30 years. When I thought about that moment, I realized Joann did everything right. She was an awesome friend. She saw something wrong and asked me about it. She believed me with very little information. She knew what to do when I was too traumatized to think straight, and she was brave enough to offer to go with me to the police. In 1991, we all need a friend like Joann. I was thinking, we don't need to be mental health professionals with PhDs to be a good human, a safe human for others in a traumatized and unsafe moment. We can all do a lot with just a little bit of preparation. We can all learn sexual assault first aid skills. I know you've never heard of sexual assault first aid because I made it up. It's not a thing yet. I also developed a really simple safety strategy for sexual harm that anybody can do. We can do it right now, and we can be prepared and not scared. It's called 3 Joanns, after my friend. And I say 3 because too often our cultural conditioning expects an individual to be extraordinary, to step up and stop the bad thing from happening in the world all alone. We're not going to do that. We are going to create a positive community response to sexual harm together in 3 simple steps. So step number 1, you're going to choose your people. I want you to think right now of 3 trustworthy, responsible, courageous people, 3 Joanns, people that you would rely on in a crisis. Could be a Joann, could be a John, not a Karen. Anyone of any identity or experience that you trust. I want you to picture those 3 J's in your mind right now. You got them? Okay, so step 2, you're gonna plan a safety strategy, because just like you do not wanna be learning CPR on YouTube while someone's having a heart attack, you wanna plan. So you're gonna put a date on the calendar, you're gonna gather your 3 J's in your living room with a laptop, a cell phone, notepad and pen, pot of tea, whatever you need to get through this next part. Because you're going to research, what do you say or not say to someone who has experienced sexual harm? And I cannot stress to you enough how important those few words are going to mean to that hurting human that hears them. You're going to research, do you go to the police, the hospital, neither? Do you call one of the local hotlines, a national one, or both? Does your hospital have a forensic nurse examiner? Because not all hospitals in all states do, and it's an issue. My friend Julia, she's a rape crisis counselor in hospitals on the weekends, and she said that 80% of sexual assault victims come into the hospital on the weekend all alone. Don't let any of your 3 J's go to the hospital alone, and bring an extra set of clothes. And while you are researching those local and national sexual violence resources, I want you to take your phone, put it on speaker, and you're going to call those hotlines. And you're going to say to them, so What does your agency do exactly when someone calls you after they've been raped? Or what can I do when someone in my life has experienced this? Does that feel uncomfortable? Awkward? Scary? Imagine having to do it all alone after you've been assaulted. Chances are you won't. So do it now. Plan your strategy now together. Step 3 is you're going to make your mantra. Trauma experts know that early intervention is key to help trauma survivors overcome the trauma, build resilience, and heal successfully. So you and your 3Js are going to choose a secret word or an emoji like pineapple or sunflower or red balloon. And that red balloon is going to be your 911 bat signal to each other. And then you're going to make your pact. You promise that within 24 hours of any questionable sexual behavior, you are going to text that red balloon to your 3Js because you trust them. And your 3 Joanns are going to promise right back as soon as they receive that red balloon. No details need to be shared. They're going to be there for you. No questions asked. Because the person that sent that red balloon is going to struggle to repeat the words of what happens right afterwards. So don't make them. Just red balloon, and your safety strategy goes into action. Having 3 Joanns or 3Js normalizes a swift, empowered, life-saving community safety strategy for sexual harm whenever and wherever it happens, so that we're prepared and not scared. Lastly, get this, imagine this. When humans with predatory sexual behavior learn, we are no longer afraid of talking about this. In fact, within 24 hours, 3 people are going to be told automatically of any questionable sexual activity, and families and communities are listening with safety strategies already in place. I believe having 3 Joanns or 3Js will be the deterrent to sexual harm we've all been waiting for. Thank you.